Well, hey, this is Luke Owen again, and in our continuing series of a stormwater treatment system, if you noticed last time, we talked about just setting up the perimeter controls of a stormwater treatment system. It's just a really short video. And so now, having gotten hammered with a few more rain events, and we're receiving a lot of water, and really with this year, with the El Niño coming in, we're expecting to see a lot more water hit the ground. We need to kind of understand how to deal with this issue of erosion and sediment control, as well as the turbidity that leaves these construction sites. So anyway, let's talk about this. I'm going to draw up here an NPDES construction site. Now, an NPDES construction site, what is that? That's a land disturbance of 1 acre or greater. This is not going to be a linear project that we're going to talk about. This is actually a project that is a standalone, or we can even talk about it as a common development later on. But right now, just to make the point of how a stormwater treatment system works, we're going to draw the perimeter controls here. Okay, so that's a land disturbance of 1 acre or greater. Later on in this project, there's going to be a building. Okay, but for right now, looking at it as a stormwater treatment system, we're going to have the perimeter controls installed. So we're going to put in, first of all, of course, our construction exit. You notice some nice little turnouts I put in there. We're going to put in perimeter controls like silt fences. We'll talk about the correct way of putting in silt fences, but for right now, we're putting in perimeter controls of silt fences. We use type A, type B, type C. Anyway, the sensitive sediment barriers are going to be placed down here, 2 rows of them, 36 inches apart, properly installed and embedded, that kind of thing. We're going to put in our construction roads. We're going to put in our temporary sediment basins. And then at this point in time, we're just going to say that that is the extent, at least what this project has for installing perimeter controls. Now, when it rains on this job site, there's going to be some erosion that goes on here. And sediment is one of these things that in the construction world, we don't think of as a pollutant. When we talk about pollution, we talk about something that really we think might cause us to get sick. We know that if we see or smell human sewage going into a creek or a stream, man, that's bad stuff, and you would not want to swim in that. When we see chemicals coming through an industrial plant, like we saw last year or the year before with American Seal Coat, that just was letting go of a lot of oil, just waste product, intentionally shoving it down to the Chattahoochee River through a ditch, which we'll call the water of the U.S., that is an avenue that transmitted a really bad pollutant into the Chattahoochee River. And I think if people would have known that for the years that they were doing it, they wouldn't have gone fishing down there, or they certainly wouldn't have swam in that water. Those are pollutant sources. We understand that. But in this world of erosion and sediment control, as construction sites got pulled into the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, we've not made that connection yet, and we need to make that connection. Sediment is a massive pollutant. It does a lot of destruction and damage when it not just with filling up reservoirs and causing flooding with culverts filling in and that kind of stuff in urban centers, urban areas for sure, but it does hurt the aquatic habitat and the things that are native in our creeks and streams that frankly didn't evolve to deal with the amount of sediment they're having to deal with today, at least here in Georgia. So we'll talk about those types of issues later on. But for right now, getting back into this construction site, we do have a stream or a creek that's flowing down here, so we're going to kind of draw that right there with a blue pen, and we're going to make it kind of a shape there. So anyway, now we have this river or this creek. So when it rains on this construction site, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System of permits requires that we sample the water. Georgia's one of few states that actually require that we sample the water. But before we even worry about sampling the water that might be going through this outfall here that's going to take it to the creek, we need to talk about inspecting the stormwater treatment system. That system has to be in place and working, whether or not it rains, all the time. during the lifetime of the project. And construction sites are, in the eyes of the federal EPA and the state, are an industrial facility. So we're treating a stormwater when it rains on that site. Now, when it rains a ½ inch, we've got a rain gauge installed out there that's not going to be underneath the trailer or underneath the tree. It's going to be out there in the open. It's going to collect water. And then we're going to see, it's going to kick in an inspection that it has to occur within 24 hours of that rain event. But you know that we do have to do inspections even when it's not raining. We have to inspect every 7 calendar days. And what we're doing is inspecting those best management practices, those issues, silt fences, roads, inlet sediment traps, those things that will be installed later on during the grading phase. We're going to be inspecting those just to make sure they're going to be operational when it does rain. See, don't think that a 7-day inspection is a waste of your time. It is not a waste of your time. It's not a waste of that creek's time. It's not a waste of the time that we want to have for our kids in the future. It is a very valuable thing. We need to make sure that system is going to work. And the only way it can work is if it's installed per the design that was created for that site. Now, we'll talk about designs and how to maintain compliance with the design and how to work with a design professional and that type of thing later on. But that is the nature of a construction site. Now, throughout the evolution of this construction site, we're going to have ditches. We're going to have stormwater trenches that are going to be there for a little while and then go away later on. As the grade changes, we want to always be able to deal with that water during various phases of construction in a way that's going to capture that water and deal with it, allowing the sediment load, our pollution, to drop out before the treatment system really has to deal with it. We have a class coming up here at the end of this month for sediment basins that are going to help people understand how to use baffles, how to understand how a surface water skimmer device should work, just the nature of a sediment base. We're going to touch on that in the videos that we're going to implement after my little introduction here. I hope that this gives you a little bit of an idea of how a construction site should work. But anyway, I just want to thank you so much for watching this video. Just a few scenes after this that are going to talk about how water should be treated before it actually hits a sediment basin, and a brief description and some pictures about how a surface skimmer works. So please let me know. Write comments down below. Sign up to the YouTube channel that we have here, and my LinkedIn account, Facebook account. All those things mean a lot. I want this to be something that's really meaningful, and if you've got some advice for things that you think can make this even better, man, I'm all over that. Please do that. That is an opportunity that we all need to take advantage of to be able to spread the word out there about what NPDES is all about. We need to be very grateful for that program. So with that, thanks so much. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Here's another benefit of using wood chip mulch. The contractor's made it a berm running parallel with the silt fence. Water must pass through the wood chips before it can even get to the silt fence. That prevents a lot of the coarse material from being pushed downhill toward the discharge point down at the bottom. Notice also we still have rock check dams down at the bottom to again minimize the energy before the water leaves. We're looking at a channel that's been cut out to drain the surface water off of a site toward a sediment pond. One of the problems with this one is the fact that the sides of the slope of the channel itself have not been protected. As a result, it may be clean water coming off the surface where it's flat, but the sides are contributing a lot of the sediment that's going into the sediment pond. These sides need to be protected. We're looking at another sediment structure. This time we're looking at the inflow, which is coarse rock laying over filter fabric. The water drops down and into the pond. Notice a series of 3 plywood baffles across it, which routes the water back and forth, extending the detention time, which means more chance for the particles to settle out before they get down here to the discharge. Once again, the slopes are grassed well, and in particular importance is the fact that the surface skimmer down at the bottom has been routed near the shoreline, so that if any services is needed, it would not be difficult to reach in there and remove the trash off of the inlet. This is a great feature in terms of saving time, and no one has to get muddy and wet going out into the middle of the pond to service the surface skimmer.